show on RTV after a win. It's good to say that sometime, isn't it?
It's great to say that.
So you were there. So you're going to carry the show today, because I missed the last quarter and a half. That was my bad. I missed it. I taped it, and I was supposed to tape it. It didn't happen. But I watched the first half and half of the third quarter before I had to leave and go to Sacramento for a tournament. But anyway, I saw some things that I wasn't real thrilled with, and you were there. You saw things up front that I didn't see, but the thing that I see and that you don't see is I got the replays and I got the real close things, and you know how you see it on television.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you feel, it doesn't matter how I feel, because you know what?
What?
We're 2-1.
We're 2-1.
That's all that matters.
That's
right
all
now.
that matters right now.
So.
And what I saw out there in Tennessee was, the thing over there for Tennessee is tighten up. That's what the big theme is. Tighten up. That's Titan. Not tighten up, but tighten up. And what I saw is the Raiders secondary tighten up, because this was the best performance that the Raiders have had this year thus far on defense. What I saw out of the offense, I saw a team that was determined to grind out a victory. I saw great touch passes by Derek Carr, and I also saw key receptions from Michael Crabtree. He had a great game. 8 receptions for 102 yards, critical third down catches that he made. So I felt overall the Raiders played very well on the road. I saw a couple other big things that we're going to talk about a little bit later when we really focus on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, with that being said, it was great for you to be there. If everything goes right, and as God's will, I'll do the same thing when they're in Mexico City, because that's where I'm planning on going. But how does that translate? And I know we're jumping way ahead, but we just have to this time. How does that translate going to Baltimore? And Baltimore's 3-0, and I don't think they've really played that well, but they're 3-0, and that's all that matters at this point. So with the way that they played, you were there, you got a good feeling for how the guys were, on the field. You could see those, especially as close as you were. How does that translate for them going into Baltimore undefeated?
Well, Baltimore, if you look at the combined scores of the teams that they faced thus far this year, it's 1-8. So I don't really feel like they played anybody. They played Jacksonville last week, and if you look at the stats, Jacksonville actually had a lot of trouble running the football. They only had 48 yards rushing, and 17 of those yards was from the quarterback. So it was pretty good that the Baltimore Ravens defense, which is known for its ferocity, was able to hold their running backs to 31 yards on the ground. So I saw a pretty slow game that was there. I didn't see many explosion plays. Old salty Steve Smith is still there. Steve Smith, and he had 5 catches, I believe, to lead them in receptions. Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. So I feel like the Raiders, if they carry the same mentality that they carried coming into Tennessee, I feel like that they can handle the Baltimore Ravens and give them their first defeat of the season.
Okay, now we always start offense first because of the magnitude of that game. We're going to flip it, and we're going to start defense first.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you said that, because the defense, after giving up a horrendous amount of yardage, setting and breaking a 65-year-old record for the most yards allowed, they gave up almost 400 yards, but there were remarkable signs of improvement in the Raiders' defense, primarily in the secondary. Let's just start with the rookie. He had a great game. Joseph came up, and he actually had 10 tackles to lead the team. I felt that was huge coming from the safety. One time he shot in there like a missile. And those running backs for the Titans are huge.
Yep.
They have huge backs, and he's 5'10", 195, probably dripping wet, and he was in there laying the wood. So I was very impressed with his ability. Also, I think worth mentioning is our 2 free agents. They both ended up with interceptions during this game. So I felt as if that with Sean Smith and the performance that he had, as well as Reggie Nelson coming up with a big pick, that we had two interceptions that were caused by free agents. The other thing that I felt was very impressive was Corey James, the starting middle linebacker. The Raiders made a switch at middle linebacker. They went from Ben Heaney over to Corey James, and Corey James was second in tackling. He had 6 tackles, 6 solo tackles, so he plugged the middle pretty well. They still were gashed for more yardage than you like to see on the ground, but overall the defense made remarkable improvements. So I don't want to not mention David Amerson. Amerson had a fantastic game. Pro Football Focus rated David Amerson the #1 player in the league at a 97-point rating. He was thrown at 11 times. He gave up 4 receptions for only 38 yards and had 5 passes defense. So kudos to Amerson, because he had a tremendous game in the secondary. So all around, I almost mentioned everybody, so let's not forget DJ Hayden. Came up, I saw some sure tackling in open field. I saw aggressive quickness towards the ball. He was out of position on one play. He recovered and made the tackle, but I saw stops in the backfield. I saw a rejuvenated former first-round pick out of Houston in DJ Hayden. And I was impressed overall with the Raiders' entire secondary on the road.
And you know, that's something that nobody would probably ever think that they'd hear you say, based on the way that we've had our first 3 games. And to have it happen in the 3rd game is better than have it happen in the 10th game. You know, so they rebounded as a defensive unit. But, you know, the one thing that I got to give them credit for more than anything, we can talk about the defensive unit, we can talk about, you know, almost 400 yards. I don't care if they gave up 800 yards, they only gave up 10 points.
Point well taken.
And the whole point of that is being said is that you've heard the expression many times, you can bend but you don't break. So if they go from 20 to 20, from our 20 to their 20 and vice versa, I don't care as long as they don't get in the end zone, they don't score. What was killing us in New Orleans and Atlanta, ironically they played last night, that was unbelievable, but the fact that we broke so many times because we weren't together. You mentioned 8 names easily just now. That means you had 8 guys on the same page.
Absolutely. And that's what Sean Smith said in the postgame, that the communication was a lot better. They felt that they were more cohesive. And I think that mentality that can fester, and the Raiders can actually build from that. The momentum is clear that the direction that Jack Del Rio is taking. He said the biggest problem in the first 2 weeks was in the eyes. Where are you looking at? You're not taking your gaps. I saw gaps being filled in the defense, and I saw people staying committed to their assignments instead of trying to be hero for hire and save the game.
Well, all I can say is that a win is a win. And we had projected, I did at least, I thought we would be 3-0 right now.
We should be 3-0
yeah.
right now.
And it doesn't always happen the way you think it's going to happen. But Baltimore was, remember that day, the second show I think it was, and I kept saying, well, you know, I'm looking now, and look, we got this, we should get this, we should get this. And all of a sudden, we're down to number 6. And I thought we still should be, you know, undefeated. But as we speak, Mr. Keith, who we have to take our hats off, he's been burning it today, boy. But we need to take a quick break. We're going to come back to...
We're going to talk about the offense.
All right, come back to the offense. We'll be right back. Back to your Raider Show on RTV, Leonard Stevens, John Phillips, and I tell you, it is such a pleasure to come in and knowing that we have a chance to really make a push this weekend going to Baltimore, but because of the fact that the defense didn't bend, it bent but it didn't break, I put it that way.
Correct.
The offense really played well, but we didn't have the type of numbers that we should have had to show for it, because we had certain individuals,
correct,
one in particular,
correct,
that probably had a lot of hair grease on his hands from getting that dew together and forgot to get them all off before he came back out on the field. And I like him, don't get me wrong, he's one of my guys.
Yeah,
but
Seth
it is
Roberts,
what it is.
Come on, let's just go ahead and say what it is. This is your Raider show, so we gotta let you know. It was Seth Roberts. Seth had a few drops, and that's plagued Seth early this season, although I need to start calling him Big Play Seth, because he does come up with big plays. He got a nice in route that he reversed field and took down the sideline for a touchdown. So he did make up for it, and he always makes up for it, but it's just the fact that he is missing and dropping balls, and it's just a lack of concentration. The one pick that Derek Carr has suffered this year was off a deflected ball right off his hands. The ball went up in the air and it was picked off. So I feel like that Seth Roberts needs to focus a little more, and you saw the same thing last year in Amari Cooper. And to some extent, we saw that a little bit Sunday, because Cooper had a big drop on 3rd down as well. clearly the crossing pattern, which has been one of his most effective so far in his young career. He caught it going across the middle, and he took his eyes off of it to see what was going downfield before he secured it in. And after the game, he mentioned that, well, you know, it's just a matter of tuck. I caught both balls, and I didn't tuck them. So he had 2 drops. One was knocked out of his hands, trying to go over the top down the sideline. That one was excusable, but the one that he dropped on 3rd down was absolutely non-excusable.
Well,
so
you know, one of the things that we could take from that, didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem.
I was just gonna lead into where you're going next anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You got a guy like Crabtree. I mean, you're talking about from the teacher to the pupil. If they just watch him, because the one thing that I mean, everybody's gonna drop the ball here and there, but he has such great hands, anticipation, but the other thing is, he doesn't try to go before he gets, I mean, you know, as a receiver, that was what I played when I was in high school, but, you know, we were taught, get the ball, bring it in, look where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see, especially in Seth Roberts, is he's like, he sees the ball coming and all of a sudden he's peeking. And when you look back, it just takes that split second for you to miss it. Yeah. And I think he's a great receiver. I mean, I think they're really underrated in their receiving crew. Walford, I think, is going to be something else. I really do. But the key thing is learn from somebody that's right there. I'm not talking about coaches. You got a guy that's out there with you in the grind every day. Learn from him because he's one of the best.
He's a coach on the field, and we talked about this last year. The Raiders are blessed to have 2 Biletnikoff winners. Do you know what that means? That means that you were ranked coming out of college as the #1 wide receiver in all of college football. And we have that both in Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. Crabtree's hands, as you mentioned, is just phenomenal. He don't drop anything, and he catches all hands. You rarely see him use his body on a catch. And the thing is that because of his stature, you know, he's lean, but he's very strong.
Oh, he's a big guy.
Don't be deceived by his,
That's
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what, you know, you look at Seth Roberts, he's taller than Crabtree. You know, he's actually 6'2". Well, that's what they list him as anyway, but he plays like he's 6'2" because he makes some big catches. So the Raiders, in terms of, we talked about the receivers, you mentioned the tight end. I feel Walford had a wishy-washy game. He caught a touchdown pass, goes to the post, right down the gut. It was called back, but yet and still, he had a slider that Carr gave it to him when the only place, and when we get to Derek Carr, so Carr gave it to him the only place he could put it, and he was sliding on the ground and bounced off his chest and was an incompletion. That was a drive.
But that goes right back to what you just said, though.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it bounce off?
Off his chest.
Instead of,
He didn't catch it with his hands.
and that's, you know,
That's what happens.
And that's what I'm talking about. Your
Exactly.
teacher is right there next to you with number
Exactly.
15 on his back. And when they get younger guys, they're not used to that because in college they don't, very seldom do they have guys like that to look up to. And you mentioned Crabtree, it just brings me back. I'll never forget when he played at Texas Tech, and they had that monumental game on national TV. And I'm trying to remember who it was against, but I'll never forget the catch he made down the sidelines to win that game. And he must have had 15, 16 catches in that game in college.
He's great.
Oh my goodness! And he's just been that way his whole career. That's why to this day, I mean, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but how I look at it now, who the 49ers got catching ball? Can you name one of them?
I don't know.
No, seriously, I'm not a 49er fan, but I'm just saying, can you name one?
Can you imagine if they had Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree?
Why would you let Bolden go away?
Wow.
I mean, I don't get it, but all I know, the headlines on the paper Monday morning was fired. What's his name? The general manager. And we're not talking about 49, but it just is what it is. But let's talk about David Carr.
Carr, man. Well, in my opinion, Carr.
Did I say David Carr?
You said David, but it's okay.
It's
Everybody
Derek.
knew you meant Derek.
Yeah.
Right? And probably we should say David sometimes because that's a lot or a big reason why Derek Carr is who he is, what he is today. You know, he idolized his brother growing up. So, you know, he's been around football, breaking down defenses since he was probably 3. So, and it shows because the leadership that he has, you know, it's one thing to be someone appoint you a leader. It's another thing to be a natural leader. And Derek Carr is a natural leader, and the Raiders definitely have a franchise quarterback.
But I'm gonna add something
Raiders
real
gonna
quick
have
to
to
that.
do something big when it comes to
keep
their
your thought,
contract.
But you use the 2 adjectives about what, but anointed by his teammates.
Oh man,
That's even better.
Right.
When your teammates anoint you as a leader, all the other ones don't matter.
And that's what they say about the Raiders. The Raiders players and the Raider fans, and I'm one of them. I love our quarterback. Trust me, I'm not worried about no controversy. As a matter of fact,
no.
I mean, just to get off that Niner gang thing just one more time, you know, I feel as if that our second string quarterback, Matt McGloin, could go over there and do a better job than either one of their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But that's my 49er jab for the day.
Well, and again, this is a Raiders show, but just watch.
Yeah.
Cap is going to get his shot, and watch for that. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
I think he's a better quarterback
Without
than what
doubt.
they have. But back to Derek Carr, you know, I felt that his leadership, his presence, you know, is felt on the field. His relationship with his players off the field works very well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Christian. He don't even just talk the talk. He walks the walk. And that's what I respect about him. And that's how you garner respect from people, by doing that. So we're going to go to a break. And we're going to come back. We're going to finish up with the offense. We're going to talk about history in the making out of our special teams. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit about our upcoming game that we have with the Baltimore Ravens on your Raider Show on our TV.
Your Raiders show on RTV, Leonard Stevens, John Phillips. We were talking about Mr. Crabtree at Texas Tech, and you have another person from Texas Tech that deserves some of that acclaim as well.
Oh man, DeAndre Washington, 30-yard bust up the middle with shake and wiggle. We need shake and wiggle. We got power. We got a lot of movement out of Latavius. So the running backs in general, I feel like the Raiders running back by committee is working.
Well, there's no question about it. The fact of it is they're all getting reps. That's the key, and that's great for Bill Musgrave as a coordinator to keep all those guys involved and active, because you can't, you know, put a guy in and give him 1 or 2 carries a game and expect him to be consistent.
Absolutely, and if you think about it, let's take a look at the first touchdown for the Raiders. 22 yards out. You know, you see Carr, he's lined up. He hands off to Latavius. Latavius jumps through the middle, jump cut. He fakes, he shakes, he breaks the tackle, and after that, he walks in the end zone like Matilda. Look at that run.
But I'm gonna tell you something, and you know I'm old school. I'm bred that way. He relaxed. Watch the replay again. I was the only one. You know, I mean, he's there. I got it. But then he just kind of relaxed, and the guy. I mean, he was in the end zone. But what if you're not a step away? I know you can always say what if, but get all the way through or spike the ball or do something, because once you cross, then it's. But he relaxed about the 3-yard line.
Right.
But the guy didn't get to him until he was a step or two in the end zone. But that always worries me, because, you know, we've seen that cost games.
Oh, definitely.
And
you
I
gotta punch
really
it in.
Yeah, I mean,
You gotta punch
make,
it in.
make your presence known when you get in there, that you're there. But don't keep that ball too loose. That was the only other thing I had about him, but I thought he played very well.
Yeah, the good thing about it is that Latavius has gotten in the end zone all 3 games this year. So that's fantastic. The running back by committee is leading the NFL in rushing. The backups, the 2 jitterbugs, the 2 5'8" guys that you don't see them until they get out of the hole. Between Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington, they had 12 carries for 85 yards. That's pretty decent. 85 yards from your backup running back tandem. So I feel like the running backs did their thing. But you know, it really wouldn't be possible, and we would be remiss if we don't talk about the offensive line.
Oh yes. Oh yes. You know, the center he's the statement of our offensive line. We know that. You know, he got first holding penalty. Remember they talked about that? And I looked at the play. I didn't see a hole, and neither did the commentators, because they showed it 2 or 3 times. They said, "Well, where did he hold?"
He had a black jersey on, so
Yeah,
you know that.
I guess so, because I mean, everybody's gonna get him sooner or later. But it's ironic that they focused on that, and then they showed the replay twice, and they had to show it again because couldn't find the hole.
Well, I mean, it depends on what side of the stadium you were sitting on, because from my vantage point, there was a lot of Tennessee Titan fans that questioned that last call at the end of the game when the push off by Andre Johnson that, you know, they nullified a touchdown that could have tied the game up. So the Raiders actually got a couple of breaks that game, especially down the stretch on that final drive.
Now, don't you think it's about time?
It is about time.
That's all I'm gonna say.
We
So
still
it's good
have,
for the goose.
if there's any Raider reparation out there, we still have something coming because we've
Oh,
been
yeah.
burnt by the refs for years.
So many
Some of the
times.
crews that are out there, I don't want to get into the referees, but I do want to talk about Osamale. I do want to talk about Gabe Jackson and Rodney Hudson, that interior line that we have. They're opening up canyons. John, I think I can line up back there and get 8 yards to carry the way that they're opening up the
Hey,
canyons.
Keith, you heard that now? Okay, we got that on TV, so we gonna.
Okay, I mean, I know
But Keith
DeAndre
brought up a
Johnson.
Keith brought up a great point, and we can't get out of here without talking about number 11.
Yep, the 18-year salty veteran, old Seabass, right? So what does Seabass do?
Hey, he has the most 50-yard field goals of anybody in the history of this game. Now, but think about it. Who else can? There's only a few, very minute people that can say anything about the history of the game as long as this game has been played.
Well, you put in time like Seabass and you still have a cannon, and that's one of his nicknames from college, the Polish Cannon.
Oh, yeah.
The Polish Cannon has now kicked 53 field goals from 50 yards or longer. That's remarkable. And he's been a Raider his entire life, and he's definitely a first ballot Hall of Fame. You know, I remember when they laughed at Al Davis because Al Davis took a kicker in the first round, right? And then took a punter in the second round.
Right, yeah.
Right? We picked our special teams up. We had Shane Leckler, and we had, who was our punter, who's actually still punting right now with the Houston Texans, and we got Sebastian, and they laughed at Al. But Al was basically an innovator about everything.
I keep saying that, but I'm going to bring my Raider thing that he gave me many years ago. I'm going to bring it to the next show. And I'm not going to talk about bring it, but you know the thing that I remember the most though about Seabass is when he was in college at Florida State. Man, he was chunky. He was, you know, and everybody, I don't care, but what I admire about him at this time in his career, he's in the best shape of his life.
Well, the older we get, we have to stay in shape.
Well, yeah, you have to, and you should, but do they?
No.
Not all of them, and that's why I'm so.
Especially a kicker, right?
Exactly, because you don't have nothing to do. I mean, you know, if you ever you've been to a Raider practice before.
Absolutely.
You see what they do. All the guys are doing different things, and the kicker, bless his soul, he's over there by himself. He don't have nothing to do. He have to tee his own ball up to practice. So there's nothing for them to do. But I was so impressed the last couple of years to see what kind of physical condition he is, and that telling me that he wants to play for a long time.
Yeah, well,
and if he continues to do what he does, they don't care about his age, his performance.
Why? I mean, think about when we also have the record for the oldest kicker to ever play the game in George Blanda.
See, we need to have a trivia question because a lot of people don't know what you're talking about.
George Blanda. George Blanda used to come in. I remember that year in 1970. He had an incredible year. Almost every week it was a comeback. Right. A 48-yard field goal against Kansas City on the road. He came back and hit Warren Wells for 2 touchdowns against the New York Jets. I said Warren Wells, number 81.
That was way back in the day.
We've always had receivers that can get deep. Right. You know, so I feel like here's my favorite Seabass since we're paying tribute to him. It happened over at Chabot Golf Course, and he happened to be there. And I got to play around with Seabass. And he can hit a golf ball just like he can hit a football. So when you said tee it up, that made me think about that moment at Chabot where I was watching him hit 300-yard drives like it was nothing. The boy can swing a golf club. So we're getting close to the close of our show. So one of the things that I have to say is that I was a little surprised by the release of Marcel Reese.
I wasn't.
He's been a Pro Bowler for 4 years. He's been, you know, pretty much symbolic as an Oakland Raider.
That's right.
And it was a nice tribute that the owner gave to him, you know, let him know that once a Raider, always a Raider. Strictly a business decision. The Raiders are deep at running back right now. We haven't talked about Jameis Winston. He's also a great fullback. And you can see him following a pattern. He does everything that Reese does, and he's younger. So it's a numbers game. You know, we had to do what we had to do, but, you know, kudos to Marcel Reese. And I just hope he doesn't land in the AFC.
Yeah, well, he's had a great career for the Raiders, but like you said, youth, numbers, I mean, this is a type of career and livelihood that these things matter. And well, all you can say is that we wish him the best, but in the other conference.
In the other conference, because I had enough of that Marcus Allen thing.
Yeah.
I hated when Marcus went to
Kansas City.
Kansas City,
Oh.
and he made us pay.
Did he?
Right, he made us
Every
pay.
time he played
Every
versus-
time. You know, that's Marcus Allen, one of my favorite Raiders.
And you know what a lot of people never really think about and see? Every time he scored, he looked up in the press box.
Yeah, Al, where you at?
Those are little things.
Let's talk about Baltimore.
You know, I just hope that we come in with the exact same thing that we left on the field in Tennessee, carry it right over to Baltimore, Maryland, and I think we'll be fine.
You know, it's really tough when you have to go back and forth to the East Coast. The Raiders, you lose travel days. It took me 2 full days to go back and forth to Tennessee, especially coming back this way because it's almost always delays. So the Raiders, as you mentioned, they have that same mentality. They come in there, the defense continue to believe and grow because we still got a ways to go on defense. We still gave up too many yards. They did get better, but we have to continue to do that, and the defense will gel. I truly believe that, and the offense has to continue to run the ball. I believe we can crack more than the 31 yards combined from their running backs. I'm sure we're going to be able to do that with the trio, the three-headed monster that we have in the backfield.
Now, you know the other thing, though, that old school. Back in the day, if the Raiders played Tennessee and then they had to play Baltimore, guess where they went?
Where they stayed is back east.
They went to Baltimore. They didn't come back to Oakland.
Right.
See, and those are little things that are missed about, modern day football. Think about the camaraderie that you build when your guys are together and they're not at home, they're not going back and forth to their apartments, to their families and everything. And I know that sounds bad, but trust me, back in the day, that was one of the biggest things that brought those guys together. They were thicker than buttermilk. I'm just telling you because it lends to that togetherness as a team and needing each other. Because you're on the road. I mean, NBA does it all the time. I mean, they have
It's a marathon in the
8, 9 game road trips. And I think more football teams need to look at that. I really do.
Well, it's a marathon in the NBA, and when we really think about the 2016 season, it's a marathon. We're about to hit the first quarter of the season. And if the Raiders come out 3-1, then I think that we're well positioned to be able to make some noise and enter into the playoffs, somewhere we haven't been since 2001.
Well, take us out of here.
Okay, well, we'll be back next week to talk about this game against the Baltimore Ravens and let you know how your Raiders did and what the outlook holds, because after that, we have our first division game coming up at home against the San Diego Chargers. So, with my colleague, John Phillips, and myself, we bid you adieu until next week on your radio show on our TV.